Hopefully you can figure it out.
Yeah, so Mark, as far as, we saw you in November. It's now late December. Where are you guys now at Adroit getting ready for opening from where you were? Obviously, some things have been built, and it looks like your tap room's pretty much going up. How far are you from actually being completed?
Very, very close. The building is basically done. Maybe 1 or 2 days left, and this will all be done. So this is basically what it will look like, except hopefully a little bit cleaner. So the only thing we have to do is hook up some gas tanks so that we can run our hot water heater and our brewing equipment, and we're just waiting on a permit, and install our draft lines, which finally showed up, and then just pick a date and go ahead and open. But we got our Virginia license the other day, so we're ready to start brewing beer starting this next week.
Okay, and how long do you expect till your first batch will be ready for the public?
I think it really just depends when the gas line comes, but it could be as early as like the 18th of January, we think. So a little bit delayed, but not too bad compared to what it could be. But it'll definitely be in January. I mean, the construction's done. We're fully licensed. We have beer made at Beltway, which we could start selling, January 1st if we wanted to, but we obviously want to have more than just one beer ready to go, so we need to brew a couple of batches of our own to supplement what we've already made.
Okay, and you mentioned Beltway. You guys actually did a public tasting with them on middle of December, just a few weeks ago. How did that go? What beers did you actually have for the public to try? I heard Bays was in there.
Yeah, that was the only one, actually. It was the only one. They had 2 of their own beers that they had made. I think, and they were just, basically testing out their system. They made like an amber ale and then like a session wheat beer. And they were selling those. They've been selling those, I guess, for a couple of weeks. So that was our first beer, Bays, which is our Imperial Stout. And we just had the regular version of that there. Although we did hook up a Randall and packed it full of Centennial hops, and we served Bays just regular, and then we served it running it through the Randall, so it gave more of a hop forward note, which was nice. That was my preferred way of drinking it.
And what was the public response to your beer? Beltway has, obviously it was their facility, but what did people coming to the event think of you guys at Adroit, maybe compared to maybe a more sessionable style like Beltway brought to the party?
It sold well. They said, that it was the most amount of people and sales that they've had since they've started doing, tastings. I think there were easily over 100 people there, and it was basically just a little happy hour. I know we killed 2 kegs, so, I'd say that's pretty well, considering the beer is almost 10% in alcohol. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, but people I talked to liked it, and like I said, sold well. We sold lots of merchandise, so we're optimistic.
And as far as the continued optimism goes, which beers do you expect to be ready for the opening? Is Bays going to be on there? Is your Soldiers of Fortune going to be on there? Stuff that people may have seen on your Facebook?
Obviously, I don't know exactly, but the plan right now is we obviously will have Bays. And we think we had already barrel aged about 70% of what we made at Beltway. So we think the brandy version of Bays that's been sitting in a brandy barrel will be ready to go. So that way we can have the regular version and then a barrel aged version of that beer ready to go. We think we will have a black IPA that we have also barrel aged ready to go. And we should have a Saison that we barrel aged in a wine barrel, a red wine Cabernet barrel, ready to go. And we might have an amber that, hey, shockingly, we also barrel aged in bourbon, I want to say. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure we'll have that. We should have at least 5 beers, that'd be my guess. But we might only have like 1 keg or maybe 2 of some of the others. So obviously we'll have not a ton, but more of the bays than the others. But we'll have to be able to have other things for people to taste that are in the same vein of the types of things that we'll be making as we move forward. So obviously, starting on January 1st, we're going to start brewing here in earnest and start making beer basically about 1 barrel a day or each time we brew, and use Beltway to do things in a little bit bigger volume. So we obviously got to sell all the bays that we've made. We'll be brewing a beer called Gia, which is our double IPA, with them in January, and that's a relatively short lead time because it's not barrel aged. So we're expecting to hopefully sell that maybe at the end of January. So we'll run out of the 4 or 5 beers that we were making here at the beginning, but then supplement it with a double IPA, have the Imperial Stout, and then as we start brewing more frequently, be able to start supplementing that as we go into February and March.
Yeah, very good. And you guys have done a few collaborations already, and in fact, we have a question for you, Mark, from a follower on our Facebook page, and they were asking, because they've actually had a chance to try your collaboration with Adventure Brewing Company from Stafford. They wanted to know what sort of other collaborations you guys maybe have in the works, if there's anything planned, if you guys want to do anything, you haven't so much ready to reach out to the other brewery yet for the new year.
Yes, there's one definitive collaboration that's already scheduled for Brew Day in April, like around the 22nd. We're actually going to brew at Beltway because obviously they have a much bigger facility, but there's a brewery in New Zealand that we met at GABF called 666 Brewing. So we thought that was a pretty cool name. He's a pretty cool guy. He's a husband and wife team. So they're actually flying in for GABF next year in April, and then after GABF flying to DC, basically for vacation. So we've already booked the space at Beltway and have already worked on the recipe of what we're going to do with them. And it's going to be a Belgian stout.
A Belgian stout?
Yes. We like stouts. And it's going to be really cool because not only is it going to be a pretty interesting brew, we're doing a combined yeast strain of more than one yeast. We're working on the grain build now, but what would be really cool is we're actually going to put Horanitos, which I'm sure I'm butchering how you pronounce it, but it's a New Zealand fruit that is only grown in New Zealand. So we'll be adding that to the beer as an interesting twist. We're working on how to get that through customs right now.
Okay, so it's you're working on getting the fruit through customs or
Yeah.
the yeast?
No, the yeast we're going to get not locally, but we're going to buy the yeast and then do a combined blend of commercially available yeast, which we've never done. We've always gone with just one strain, but we'll be combining more than one to impart the flavors we want. But the fruit, apparently you can import it in the quantity that we need it. So we've confirmed that, so that's why that's in the recipe. So it'll be pretty cool because that beer we will probably either bottle or can at Beltway, something we've never done before, so we can actually sell it a little bit easier for transport. And the reason for that is the guy from New Zealand wants to ship, like a pallet or something down to New Zealand so that he can sell it like at his place. So we're now international, or we will be in April, hopefully. So that's the only thing that's definite. We're very, very open to the idea, particularly since other people obviously have bigger facilities than we do. And, we would love to leverage that if we can and collaborate. But the only people we've spoken to that have expressed serious interest is a brewery out of Charlottesville called Three Notched. We went and visited them, met the brewer, really cool guy. I was very impressed with the beers they were making. So he said that they'd be open to brewing something together. So we'll be pursuing that. We've spoken casually with other people, like the guys from Three Brothers, for instance, but nothing definitive. I think we need to kind of cut our teeth and get open and make some sales and get that reputation of somebody that's doing something interesting, so that some of the bigger breweries, more established, will be more willing to commit to doing something like that. But we're definitely open to it because I like the idea of brainstorming and doing something that focuses on what our take on is, which is using interesting ingredients and doing it in a non-traditional way with, what another brewer is bringing to the table, like the guy from New Zealand, who obviously recommended the New Zealand fruit. So again, we never even heard of the fruit, and so that's something that became better because we were able to work jointly.
Okay, and going off of getting sort of open and all that stuff, as people will see on your Facebook page, you've put several pictures up of several of your beers, Bays, Soldiers of Fortune, so on, with different food pairings, even some going so far as cigar pairings.
Cheese pairings?
Yes, cheese as well. Seems to be definitely a theme that you guys are trying to hit hard, is that your beers are definitely meant to be enjoyed with other things instead of just enjoying them by themselves. Are there going to be events related to that on site or at restaurants around the Loudoun, Leesburg, Purcellville area?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So I think clearly we intend on selling our beer one at a time. Like, we're not putting it in 6-packs or cases, because it's not what we're making. We're making like fine wine. It's a special occasion beer that can be enjoyed by itself in proper glassware at the right temperature, but also to really enhance your dining or social event. So a cheese pairing, a cigar pairing, it just makes sense, so that this would be the type of beer you would go to. So we try to give guidelines, recommendations of things that we like to eat with it. Obviously, we spend a lot of time photographing and trying to document ways it can be enjoyed other than just by itself. So we're happy with how that's turned out, and as we move forward and make more and more beer, because again, this year we might make 40 or 50 distinct beers. So that's, again, 40 or 50 potential pairings that could be done. So yes, we will be bringing in caterers and doing private events here. Perhaps in this area, perhaps out front. I haven't decided exactly, but we'll do plated dinners, and it'll be a private event where we charge people per plate to come in, and we'll do a 3 or a 5 or a 7 course meal with each beer paired accordingly. Assuming that goes successfully, then and probably sooner than later, we will be reaching out to the local restaurants like Magnolia's or Tuskie's or some of the local places that already do beer dinners to do an Adroit Theory beer dinner. Preliminary talks have been, sounds like they were open to the idea. So that's definitely going to be a focus for us as we move forward.
All right, and last question before we let you go. Again, another question coming to you from Facebook. There's been a lot of questions, and again, we've asked this to you before, but they put a new spin on it about doing a sessionable ales or sessionable lagers. It's the lager question. Do you ever plan on doing maybe a stronger take on a lager? Because all we've seen so far for you guys, it appears, is on the ale side of it.
That's a very good question, and obviously I would never rule out us making lagers, and obviously if we do, we would make presumably non-sessionable lagers. That's really more a function of equipment and storage capacity. I mean, what we have is very, very small, so ales clearly are a little bit more flexible in terms of fermentation time, fermentation temperature control, etc. So again, it's just not where our focus is. I like drinking lagers, but in terms of making and having something to sell, at least for the foreseeable future, it's going to be ale forward. Because again, we like big beers. That's what I tend to gravitate towards from a drinking perspective. So that's the type of beer that we're trying to make. And I think it's also a little bit easier to experiment, with ales than lagers, which, I guess you can. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But all the beers that we've planned out over the next year, that some of which are still very conceptual, that we're still working out, what the concept is and what the ingredient list would be, are all ales, and they all are over 7%, beers. Again, I figure there's lots of great brewers, both here in Virginia, in the Mid-Atlantic area, that are making great go-to beers. Pale ales and IPAs that are clean, simple, great drinking beers. I'm really not that interested in competing in that marketplace. I want to focus on some really interesting things that are interesting to me, pair excellently with food, and that frankly people that whose opinion I value, who have what I would classify as a sophisticated palate, are enjoying both, again, by itself as well as paired with food and various accoutrements. So that's the market we want to focus on. So that's what we're going to do.
All right, excellent.
But related to that, though, we should talk about our membership club, which we launched at the Beltway Brewing event. We've already sold our first dozen memberships.
Did you really? And I know I've heard of it, but can you remind us of the name?
Yes, it's called the Black Heart Society.
Which definitely would fit.
Well, yeah. We'll actually be launching it very shortly, like literally maybe even today or tomorrow. Our website is finally almost done. Our shopping store is all set up, and we're testing it right now. But hopefully, within the next week to 10 days, we'll be able to sell memberships online as well as here at the tasting room. But the idea is that it's a private club, and it is a paid membership. We have 3 tiers, level 1, 2, and 3. And depending on which tier you purchase, it gives you access to certain beers that we were only going to make for our club members. So, for instance, we make Bays, and it's a big seller main beer for us, but we do a special barrel where we only have 1 barrel of that spirit, and we age a version of Bays, and the only place you can get that beer is being a club member. So we will bottle all of it and limit the run. So if we have 200 people in our club, we'll bottle 200 bottles, and that will be it. And that will be the only place you'll be able to get that beer. We're going to release 6 beers in 2014 as part of that plan. And again, depending on which level you sign up, will determine how many of those beers you get. Plus, as an added bonus, our club members get discounts on all of our products when they do come to the tasting room, as well as we now have a shipping license. So we can ship beer to Virginia residents, and so you can save money, and we can ship beer directly to your house.
Awesome. Mark, thank you for joining us, everyone. This has been Taproom Tales with Mark Osborne, the owner and founder of Adroit Theory. Mark, thank you.
Thank you.